So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, giving up on equivalency with the EU when it comes to financial services. So this is really interesting, given that the UK relies heavily on financial services to fund other parts of the economy. So he does make some interesting statements about getting rid of certain rules and reforms, etc. So it looks like the UK are looking at getting rid of certain financial rules, which is grim, because if we start going for deregulation, we might get another '08 style, financial crisis, which, was a disaster. Let's not forget the Great Recession was horrible. It took us a long time to kind of get out of it, and then we were plunged back into it. So yeah. Talks to secure City of London access to the EU have stalled, Rishi Sunak confirmed in his first Mansion House speech to financiers, as he set out sweeping reforms designed to help Britain's finance industry embrace opportunities after Brexit. So he's saying that, we're going to embrace it, be global Britain, all this nonsense, and we're going to give up on the EU essentially in terms of equivalency, which again is very stupid, especially since it is quite hard to trade financial services across other continents because you have time zone issues, language barriers, etc. The Chancellor said a deal on a comprehensive post-Brexit financial services settlement with the EU has not happened and probably will not happen, to be fair. The EU have been taking loads of business from us in terms of financial services, clearing houses, all that kind of stuff, and it's benefited EU countries a lot. Some of the businesses gone to Dublin, Frankfurt, Paris, and other places. Also, another beneficiary of this was the Americans. A lot of services have gone to New York whilst they wait out what's going to happen here. So Sunak says, now we are moving forward, continuing to cooperate on questions of global finance, but each as a sovereign jurisdiction with our own priorities. It's interesting that he calls the EU sovereign, despite the fact that when we were a member of the EU, apparently, we weren't sovereign. Are you saying EU members have some sovereignty then? Is that what you're talking about? Sunak said Britain would diverge from Brussels' rules on financial services as he set out his vision for the city. So basically what he's saying is, oh yeah, you didn't give us equivalency, now we're going to diverge from the already agreed standards that we had before when we were a member. So probably deregulation. When they use words like diverge and reform, typically it means deregulation. Suggesting the UK would pivot away from Europe, he said he would build instead on deals such as a partnership on financial services signed with Singapore. The thing is, Singapore, it's very possible that UK services might move to Singapore because they have lower standards and lower taxes. So again, a very strange move from the Chancellor. With plans to grow businesses in the Indo-Pacific, the US and China, let's not forget here that a lot of services come to the UK because the UK was a gateway into the EU. You had Swiss bankers, Americans, Chinese, whatever, coming to the UK because we're a massive gateway into the EU. Now that's gone. So if we start creating kind of financial service agreements with other countries that have way lower standards than us, it could mean that you have more services leaving the UK because they have easy access to us because of an agreement they have, and they're going to move to lower standard countries. He also issued a message to Beijing, however, that deeper economic ties would not come at the expense of Britain abandoning its principles. What principles? We are arming, Saudi Arabia and other countries. What principles are you talking about, my friend? He says, Britain has the freedom to do things differently and better, and we intend to use it fully. Differently doesn't always mean better, and if he goes for deregulation like I think he's going to do, that's not better. That's way worse. That's going to cause massive problems in the financial service industry. There's going to be a Singapore on the Thames. Great, that's what we all wanted. That's what you promised during 2016. Not Sunak specifically, but that's what Brexiteers promised, right? He said we wouldn't just have EU standards, we'd have higher standards than the EU. Okay then, I wonder what happened to those people. Former chancellors have used the event to court Chinese businesses. Sunak sounded on a more cautious note, while dismissing Tory MPs who want to reduce ties with Beijing, obviously because of what's going on there with human rights abuses. Sunak stressed Britain needed a mature and balanced relationship, just like the one we have with Saudi Arabia and other, countries. Sunak also set out a roadmap for financial service sector reforms. He said would boost Britain's competitiveness after Brexit. I mean, this is definitely looking at deregulation here. If you want to compete more, typically you have to deregulate to compete with other countries that have lower standards than you. But the thing is, if we start deregulation, we might not get equivalency with New York, for example, who have higher financial standards, who have decent financial standards to the point where they have equivalency with the EU and we don't. So most likely, if we do go for deregulation and try and follow the Singapore model, we won't get equivalency with other countries. Experts have warned that splitting away from EU rules could make it harder for city firms to do business with continental clients, which inevitably is happening right now as is. So the simple fact is, we are already losing business with European kind of clients and stuff like that. That's already happening. A lot of businesses are going and leaving the UK to go into EU countries, like we mentioned before. So we're going to lose even more business because we're going to have it's going to be less likely that we get equivalency anyways, and it's going to be harder for businesses to do businesses to do stuff with European counterparts. It comes amid growing concerns in the government over a gradual leaching away of finance businesses to EU centres such as Paris, Frankfurt and Dublin, which is something we mentioned before, that these countries are doing better now. Amsterdam has overtaken London as Europe's largest financial trading centre early in the year, and that's a trend that's going to continue. Other countries will continue to do better than us, especially the ones that have English as a second language, because a lot of American services are going to set up shop within those countries that have strong English as a second language. Places like Germany, the Netherlands, etc. Government efforts have focused on securing equivalents for the UK finance industry regulations as part of talks with Brussels, in which the two sides recognise each other's standards as equivalent. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and that's why we're looking at deregulation, because we're throwing a sulk about this. Centred on access for UK clearinghouses, financial market infrastructure providers, which sit in between banks' trading activities, Sunak said there was no reason of substance why they should not continue to serve EU clients. It could be because we're looking at deregulation, dog. That could be why they won't be able to serve EU clients, because the UK is actively looking at deregulation. Not to mention the fact that we are the UK is used for money laundering by global entities, like the Russians, the Chinese, etc. Even the Americans probably, especially with the islands of Jersey and Guernsey. So again, there is a reason why the EU might want to cut ties with us. Maybe it's due to massive tax evasion. Sunak goes on to say the EU will never have cause to deny the UK access because of poor regulatory standards. So is that why you're talking about deregulation then, diverging and reforms? Is that why? Because this statement here doesn't make sense if you are looking at deregulation, which it definitely looks like you are. You won't say the word or the phrase, but I think you are. It is understood, however, that talks between London and Brussels have stalled, with the Chancellor believing the ball is in the court of the European Commission's court to advance negotiations. I mean, realistically, we're the ones who need it more. We export more services to the EU than we import from the EU. So this is in our interest to get these agreements. So again, he's wrong. He goes on to say, and that the time is right to move forward with sweeping Brexit reform, so deregulation. As part of the pledge to maintain the city's competitive position after leaving the EU, the Treasury has launched consultations on reforms to the insurance industry, the regulation of wholesale capital markets, and the rules for listing companies on the London Stock Exchange. So the middle one here, regulation of wholesale capital markets, I'm not too familiar with, but obviously, insurance industry, maybe talking about deregulating certain rules around insurance. So maybe insurance companies can take riskier clients on. And rules for listing companies on the London Stock Exchange. So are you going to make it easier for companies to go on the stock exchange? I don't know. He also promised that tax rates on banking profits should not rise significantly from current levels. So he's doing this in order to get more bankers to come to the UK by promising that tax rates won't go up. The Chancellor also confirmed that the government would sell green bonds to British consumers. A big snooze fest, but something that's a good thing. Selling more green bonds to invest more in government, to invest more in green energy. But it's a massive snooze fest. Annalise Dodds proposed something similar. So this is the government, nicking stuff from Labour once again. But, it's a massive snooze fest. No one really cares about green bonds. No one's like, oh, did you see, darling, the UK are passing more green bonds. I wish to invest in green bonds. Said no one ever. Aiming to make the UK the best place in the world for green finance. I mean, you might get some kind of middle class people who are heavily invested in the environment and stuff like that who might buy government green bonds, but there are probably better ways to invest their money. The Treasury plans to sell £15 billion worth of government bonds, as well as offer a savings bonds to consumer through NSNI. I don't know what NSNI is, but yeah, I mean, this is okay stuff. I mean, it gives people the option to buy government bonds instead of putting their money in, say, savings accounts if interest rates are very low. A very bankery kind of thing to do, I guess, but, a massive snooze fest. But what we can gather from this statement is the UK has given up on getting equivalency from the EU, and what we're going to do because of that is go for massive deregulation. That's my kind of assessment of the situation. But anyways, look, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.